So every week in these presentations, I've been going through the chapters and kind of hitting the highlights. And this week I'm not going to do that. I think that this chapter you can look through and you can make heads or tails of what's there. I do want to remind you or kind of point out that we are only looking at the first 11 pages of chapter 3A this week, so you're not looking at the whole chapter, you're just looking at those first 11 pages. But I want to spend the time in this presentation talking about the assignment. And so what you are going to do, since this is talking about marketing and advertising, and marketing is the process of identifying what your potential customers or your customers, if you're already in business, want, you're going to create a marketing survey. You need at least 5 questions. So some example questions here are, do you currently buy plants? If no, what deters you from the purchase of plants? Or if yes, where do you generally make up your plant purchases? What types of plants? You want to come up with 5 questions that you could potentially give to customers to identify their needs. Now, if you look in the chapter, there's some more information on page 3 that talks about situational analysis, or I think page 2. Yep, page 2 looks at customer surveys to give you a little bit more ideas. But you want to think of questions that if you were a greenhouse manager, you would want to ask your customers. I want you to post those questions to the discussion board titled Chapter 3A, and then you want to look at least 2 other people, and since there's only 3 other people other than yourself, this shouldn't be too hard to do, but you want to offer positive, constructive comments. By positive, constructive comments, I don't mean, oh, good job, or great work. You want to look at their question and, of course, compliment the strengths of the question, but then you also want to offer feedback for improvement. So, if you look at the question here, do you currently buy plants? You might respond to the other person in your class. This is a great question that you may want to ask people, but if you were to restructure it to say, how often do you buy plants? Then you might get a better understanding of how frequent the customers are. And of course, there are lots of different routes that you could take with that. That's just one example. Then you want to take your 5 questions and you want to survey 20 people using the survey that you developed. These 20 people can be anyone that you think would be potential customers. In the past, students have used other people in their classes and have just asked those people, but you need to identify 20 people and ask them those questions for your marketing survey. Then you want to create a graphical report of your findings, and by a graphical report, I'm talking about a pie chart or a line graph. You'll want one of those charts for each of the questions. So if question 1 is, do you currently buy plants? You might have a pie chart showing how many people answered yes and how many people answered no. Or if you were to ask, how much money do you generally spend on plants? You might have a line graph or a bar graph showing the responses to that. Then you want to upload those graphical reports as a reply to your post so that everyone can see what the results were. We want to have this done by February the 23rd, because whenever we go into next week's assignment, you'll want to have those results posted so everyone could have seen those. If you have any questions, please either post a question to the discussion board for general questions or send me an email. I encourage you to get started on this early this week, because if you're going to survey 20 people, you obviously can't wait until the night before the assignment is due to get that completed. I know that's a really short presentation for this week, but I think that will get you started in the right direction. Have a good week.